Welcome to my hotel room. I generally don't do this. My norm is to generally have a pre-recorded episode that drops. And I had that ready in the queue, but today I decided to do something different. I'm going to dive into a topic that I generally stay clear of. I'm going to discuss the current event that happened on Saturday, July 13th, 2024. The reason I generally don't talk about politics is actually for multiple reasons, but today I'm going to break that code. My first reason is that politics in today's world, quite frankly, I don't see a lot of leadership. I actually believe that it's a circus sideshow that is intended to keep us entertained and our eyes off the reality of what's really going on out in the world. I also believe that leadership is for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're red or blue or what political stance you decide to take. Everyone needs leadership. So I definitely don't want to be pigeonholed into a certain demographic. And let's be real. I also want my content to be evergreen. It's something that ages well and has lasting value for you, the listeners, that you can refer back to. But today, I'm going to break that code with this extreme example of what happened. Not because I want to get into politics, but because I want to use it as a platform to discuss why in leadership, the message that we deliver matters. Now, before I go any further, I want to take a moment of silence for Corey Comparatori, the 50-year-old fire chief who gave his life in an exceptional display of leadership, serving his family by becoming a shield between the bullets and them. May God rest his soul. Now let's get on with it. I'm Steve Baumgartner, your host and founder of the Fireforge Leader, and my mission here today and the mission of this podcast is to serve you through providing knowledge, tools, and resources around leadership strategies on three primary battlefronts. Those battlefronts are simply out in the workplace, in your community, and most importantly, with your family. Now let's get to work.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fireforge Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host Steve Baumgartner and his guests in the Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fireforged Leader.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fireforge Leader podcast. Hopefully I didn't lose you in that moment of silence, but I want to tell you, I believe it's important to honor this man who served his family to the end and leaving behind his wife and two daughters. You know, his family has been disrupted for eternity. And yet, this family, with this courageous man, has taken backstage due to the political nature of the attack. That's why I wanted to make sure that I added in that moment of silence for him and his family. So Saturday morning, it was a normal Saturday morning for my family. I got up a little bit earlier than everybody else did, and I worked on the podcast, worked on some social media things. And, you know, like normal, my wife, she was upstairs. She prepared breakfast for myself and my two younger kids that go to jujitsu with me. Saturday morning was a touch different though because my oldest daughter and my grandson were down for the weekend. So we split ways early in the morning. My oldest daughter, my youngest son, and my grandson went with my wife, and they did a couple things in the morning. I took two of my children to jujitsu, where I have the honor of first I get to coach. I get to be part of the coaching team that coaches my kids' jujitsu. And then I followed that up with my own personal class. So after that, I take those two kids, and once again, my wife, my oldest daughter, my grandson, and my youngest son, they went out and ran some errands, did some different things. I took the two kids to a toy store because I had to buy some time, and then we all met up at a restaurant, one of our favorite restaurants, for lunch. After that, we had plans to go to a little place called Deanna Rose Farmstead. And we did that for a little bit of an outing. They have some different historical things there, as well as some animals and different things. So, once again, my wife, daughter, grandson, youngest son, they drove separately and they met us for lunch, and then we all went to this farmstead. So, after this farmstead, we closed it down at 5 p.m. I took the two kids home. Everybody else, they stopped. I don't know, got tea, went to a store, different things, whatever. And it was about a touch after 7 p.m. And I caught something on a local radio station about Trump being shot. And I sent a text to my wife, just basically saying, did you hear that Trump got shot? Right? And I didn't know what the status was at this point. I didn't know how serious or not serious it was. So I started scouring the internet, right? Trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know if I've told you all this, but I really try and stay away from media for the most part. And I've been happier because of that. But I want to start out with a couple of quotes here. So first, by George Orwell, he stated once, "But if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought." Another quote that I want to mention is words, so innocent and powerless as they are, as standing in a dictionary, how potent for good and evil they become in the hands of one who knows how to combine them. And this was said by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, I mention these two quotes because I saw this play out. And I've been seeing it play out. But I really saw it out as I did some internet searches for what had happened, what the status of Trump was, and anything else that I could find out about the incident. And when I was online, I saw things like, "Too bad the shooter missed." What the hell? I saw memes. I even saw a meme about The Simpsons and them calling it, right? Just stupid things. Not even thinking about how this man who had been shot had a family. I saw that both parties were coming out in full force to blame the other side. Not to worry about anybody who had been shot, but just trying to blame the other side to get ahead for the election. And then I also saw our current president, who took over 2 hours to condemn the violence And I shook my head as I was wading through it all. Just wondering how we get like this as a nation. But really, it's no surprise. Come on. Look around. Look at the things that people say to each other. Hell, look at the things that Biden and Trump say to each other. So let's start off with Trump. And I want to throw a couple quotes out there that have been fact checked. Trump has been noted to say things like Biden is trying to destroy the American dream with his radical policies. He also said Joe Biden is a puppet of the radical left. They control him, and he does what they say. Now let's look at how Biden talks about Trump. Biden has been quoted, once again being fact checked. What he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. He's also been quoted to say, Americans want a president, not a dictator. And also, it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. Now, these comments, all right, let's frame this up here. These comments are aimed at stirring up hate in the people. These comments have been said by two men who have been in the highest leadership role in the country. Let that settle in for a second. Now let's take that and we'll move that into the three different defined leadership roles that we talk about here on this show. Let's talk about it at work. Imagine that you are putting together a team of people to work on a problem, and you ask your team if they know anybody who we could bring onto this team because you're looking for a certain set of expertise. One of your team members says, "Oh, you should bring Nancy on. She has that exact skill set that you're looking for." But before it even gets out of that employee's mouth, you hear another employee state, "But what Nancy has called blacks is horrible. She has called them super predators." All right, take a step back for a moment, right? You're in your workplace, you have these two people. One just called out the other one's nomination because of possibly what Nancy has said about blacks, or it might be bullshit, right? But let's take that both ways. Us as leaders would not put up with the behavior of that racism if it were true. And we also would not put up with the slander and mudslinging if it weren't true. We wouldn't put up with either one of those things. We would correct the problem as a leader. At home, you're at home, you and your wife, or I'm going to use me and my wife for this example. We're at home talking about how kids need to eat their vegetables, right? And let's be clear, I'm not fond of eating vegetables either. So I could easily side with my kids on this topic. I could call my wife out as a Nazi and that we should put a bullseye on her. That's not the kind of household I want. And we could do this in our community. We could do this in our neighborhoods as well. Same examples, right? And I'm not going to belabor that and go through the community aspect. But what I do want to mention is that in the examples above, in those situations, especially in the workplace and at home, we have clear values, we have clear visions, and that is the difference in the situation and why this seems so absurd when we put those same contexts in those situations. And that's what we're missing in the political arena, in my opinion. And we've allowed politics to really steal our prosperity in this nation. We have lost sight of our vision as a nation, that vision being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I want to underline pursuit in there. We're not guaranteed in our visions to be happy, but we're guaranteed that we can pursue it. But we've allowed ourselves to give up that vision so that these damn politicians can hand us something on a silver platter. We're not pursuing it anymore. And then we let these absolutely horrible leaders act like pathetic human beings. We would never allow our children to act like this. We would never allow someone to talk to our wife like this. We would never allow our employees to talk to each other like this. But yet, in the political spectrum, we applaud it. And we encourage them to go at each other. And then we take their example and we go at each other as well. Politics are destroying our communities, our friendships, and our families. I have never seen people disconnect from other people as quickly as when politics gets brought up. And it's not even policy, it's politics. So let's face it, politics are not going to change unless we stop engaging in their bullshit. We need to disconnect from the matrix. And here's the funny thing is that media controls a lot of this, right? But we can actually change media quicker than we can change the political spectrum because media is in it for the profits. So how do we do that with media? Stop engaging in their mind control and how they tell you to think. Stop watching, reading, and acting like they want you to act. Bottom line is stop being a damn puppet. But we also need to fill that void. Where there's an absence of something, it's going to be filled. So we do this by setting the example. We need to create strong values and visions within our span of control. And we can do that at home first, with ourselves, out in our communities, at the workplace. If we have those strong values, we can build that strong vision with those values. And then we know where we're heading and we don't give them that control. Because what we do when we create those values and visions is we also decide on how we are going to engage with society. And what we do with that is we set a different course. And we stop allowing the future generations to be caught up in this entire hatred loop. I'm going to call it out right now, and this is just my speculation, but the shooter was driven by this hate speech. by Trump, by Biden, I don't care. Both of them need to stop. All of them need to stop. Now, let's not be disillusioned, though. Even though in the political spectrum things are very extreme, these same types of behaviors, they show up at work, they show up at home, and they show up in our communities. They might not be so direct, but they show up. Our words have a tremendous amount of weight, and they have that weight for good as well as evil. We have the chance to change the course of history, but it's not through politics. As a previous guest, Scott Mann, so eloquently states, no one is coming to save you. What I'm talking about right here is yet another example of what he talks about, taking it to grassroots efforts. And it's going to be so much more effective. But politics is just like Hollywood. When the ratings go down, they're going to change their tactic. So let's force those ratings down. I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in to the Fireforge Leader podcast. I hope today's episode has caused some fodder to really ignite that fire for leadership within you and to inspire change. I want you to go out and start living that leadership life. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, I want you to subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you leave a review and definitely share it with others who might benefit from this message. And then once again, follow us on the social media platforms for more insights and inspiration on leadership and personal growth. Remember, our words as leaders carry a tremendous amount of weight. Don't use them without understanding the impact they have.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.